Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of the Employment Committee. Welcome also to those accessing the meeting via the live stream to YouTube. During the live broadcast, members and officers are asked to please ensure that mobile phones are placed in silent mode. Only audio from the microphones will be captured on live stream. Therefore, please ensure they are switched on when speaking and switched off when you have finished speaking. Minutes will be produced in the usual way, and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on YouTube until such time as the minutes are produced. The first item on today's agenda is the appointment of the chairman for the municipal year 2025 to 2026. Could I have a nomination, please? Councillor Mrs. Davies?
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Gary Christie to be the chair.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that nomination, please? Councillor Mafferdon, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? No? So in the absence of any further nominations, Councillor Gary Christie is appointed as Chairman of the Employment Committee for the municipal year 25 to 26. So that takes us to agenda item 2, to report any apologies for absence. And I have apologies from Councillor Christie and Councillor Benny. So this next item on the agenda is the appointment of the Vice Chairman for the municipal year. Could I have a nomination, please? Councillor Mafferdon?
Thank you. I nominate Councillor Hacknowaz to be Vice Chair for the municipal year 2025-2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davies. Are there any further nominations? No. So in the absence of any further nominations, Councillor Nawaz is duly appointed as Vice Chairman of the Employment Committee for this municipal year. So, as Councillor Christie has submitted apologies for today's meeting, Councillor Nawaz, could you please fulfil the role of Chairman for today and take your seat here? Thank you. Thank you, and I'll now hand over conduct of today's meeting to Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. And thank you all. I will begin with agenda item 4, which is to confirm and sign the minutes of 12th of September 2024. Can I have a proposer to approve these minutes, please? Thank you. Councillor Davies. And could I have a seconder, please? Can I have a seconder for minutes? Thank you. Right. If you have any comments in relation to these minutes, please raise your hand. No? Okay. Can I have a show of hands to approve these minutes, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. So the minutes of the Employment Committee held on 12th of September 2024 are therefore approved. Agenda item 5 is to report additional items for consideration which the Chairman deems urgent by virtue of special circumstances now to be specified. There are none. Agenda item 6 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you inform the meeting now? No hands are raised. Thank you. In respect of agenda item 7, I shall now pass over to Sarah Gove, Housing and Communities Manager to present the Domestic Abuse Support Employee Policy and Procedure Report. She will also be able to provide responses to any service-specific questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the draft Domestic Abuse Support Employee Policy and Procedure. This report updates Employment Committee regarding the Council's proposed policy and procedure for supporting staff who are experiencing domestic abuse. So as background, our Housing Options team have been undertaking the Domestic Abuse Housing Accreditation, known as DAHA, for the past 2 years. It's a really extensive and challenging piece of work which requires the service to demonstrate the quality of the work undertaken by the whole team. There's a requirement under DAHA accreditation that we will produce a policy and procedure outlining how we will support staff who are survivors of domestic abuse. The current procedures have been developed into a policy to meet the requirements and has been approved by a management, trade union and staff partnership on the 29th of July last year. The content is unchanged. The accreditation requires the Housing Options Service to meet a range of elements, the whole service to ensure compliance and evidence of how we meet every criteria. The accreditation process includes anomalised random reviews of cases to ensure a very high standard of service and effective partnership working to enable the best outcomes for our customers who are experiencing domestic abuse. One of the criteria was to produce a policy and procedure to support the Council's employees. The document gives practical advice and signposts to specialist organisations, including the Housing Options Service. As part of the development of the policy, we carried out consultation with Domestic Abuse Champion Staff Group, of which we have 14 members across the Council, along with domestic abuse survivors with lived experience. All agreed with the content of the document and were happy for it to be published on our intranet once approved. There is also a draft residence policy that will be presented to Cabinet on Monday the 21st of July and hopefully when approved will appear on the Council's website. So the recommendation is set out in paragraph 3.1 and that's agreement is sought from Employment Committee to agree the policy. Thank you, Chair.
Can I have a proposer, please?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to propose it.
Thank you. Can I also have a seconder for the report, please? Councillor Murphy-Dunn. Thank you. This item is now open for debate. Are there any questions or queries? Councillor Davis.
I've got a couple of questions. Do you want me to do them one after the other, or do you want me to do one and let them... Do you want them one at a time and respond? No. Okay. Okay, so the first one is, are there any scenarios where protecting the victim may put the council at legal risk, for example, employment law conflicts when adjusting duties or location?
We would link in with our HR team on such scenarios to make sure that the council's best interests are protected as well as the employee.
And what provision, how would you manage the, it might be you again, Sam, how would you manage the reputational risk if a person causing the harm was an employee and the abuse became public?
Well, that's an excellent question, Councillor Davis, thank you. I suppose we would work very closely with the individual and also the victim, and obviously information is confidential, so wouldn't be shared. So it's about working with the appropriate authorities and signposting those. So I've never had an issue like that before, but it's an excellent question. Thank you.
Shall I just keep going? How is the data protection ensured when you're recording actual disclosures, and how is the access to those records kept? how they kept confidential? What things have you got in place?
From a housing options perspective, so anyone that comes to our service, and it's not necessarily going to be just for housing advice, it could be any number of elements of wanting to chat through to someone, from wanting specialist support from outside of the organisation. So all of that information is kept on our housing system that is secure and confidential.
To your department, or
Yes.
is it generally available?
No, to our department, yes, that's correct.
If I could just add to that, so if a disclosure comes through and the individual, like an employee, discloses that to us, we would record that on their file, but that's kept under lock and key. It's not disclosed without their permission. But obviously, once we know about it, once we're told about it, we have a duty to act. So we would manage that with the individual.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Do you have another question?
I do.
Please carry on.
What happens if a survivor needs ongoing support beyond what's covered in the emergency situation? So, how do you work it? Can they have extra leave? Can they have flexible hours?
So, yes, is the word to that. So we have a compassionate leave policy. We have flexible working opportunities. We can alter their workplace. They can work from home. So there's lots of different things we can do, as well as the counselling that the council offers as part of its employee assistance programme, mental health first aiders. There's a lot of support available to provide that ongoing support and having a safe environment for that individual.
If I could just
Excellent,
add
thank
from
you.
From a DAHA accreditation perspective, so we've got a whole list of specialist organisations that will work alongside HR to ensure the best service for that individual.
Thank you. You'll be glad to know that's me done.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Any other questions?
Just one question.
Please, Councillor.
Hi, Sarah. During your report, you used the word customers on one or two occasions. When you say customers, who are you referring to?
That's with regard to people approaching us, our service. So it could be, so this is in relation to staff. So once they would come to housing options, for example, for advice, they would become a customer, a client. Yeah. Okay.
Questions? I have a query. You are seeking DAHA accreditation for the council. What's the significance of this? What advantage would you get from it?
So this is a very high standard of good practice. So it's a national scheme, and I think it sends out a very positive message that the council takes domestic abuse incredibly seriously. And hopefully when we achieve it, after an awful lot of work from the team, it will show that we are a really credible organisation. So it really demonstrates that we offer a very high standard service, and that's what we're looking for our customers, who are at the forefront of what we do.
Aspiring to the highest standards. Excellent. One more query, unless there are any other questions. Yes, please, Councillor Mafidon.
Thank you, Chair. Just in the back of your question as well, DAHA accreditation, how long does the process take? How much does it cost? And with the impending abolition of the introduction of the unitary authority, how will this then carry on to the new unitary authority? Let's say Finland is accredited, and then when we merge with Peterborough and Peterborough isn't accredited. Will this then be like a process that has to be repeated again and incurring additional costs? How's that? I know you might not be able to answer that question, but I just want to know what your take is on it.
That's a good question. So the accreditation lasts for 3 years. So it's quite timely in that respect. Obviously with LGR, Peterborough are also doing the accreditation. Okay.
And the costs of it, obviously.
It's been funded through our Community Safety Partnership Grant. So I think it was 3,000, but I'd need to check that for you. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. My query was that this is for the in-house, this is really an in-house provision. And is it correct that all the staff are trained in this?
So there's two elements to the accreditation is for our internal and external customers. So the report is purely for our staff. Okay, so it would cover all staff across the organisation.
Okay, thank you. Should you come in contact with one of the council users of council services, would you be able to take any action there?
When you say users of council services, do you mean our residents, Fenland residents?
Yes, one of the tenants or somebody else using council services.
Yeah, so we would advise them. We will have information, hopefully, if the policy is approved on Monday at Cabinet, then that information will be updated onto our website. At the moment, people contact us very regularly about domestic abuse. Sadly, it's one of our top 3 reasons people will contact us.
Okay, thank you. Right. Are there any other questions on this report? No? Thank you for that. Since there are no further questions, no speakers, therefore, the recommendation asks that the Employment Committee agree the policy. All in favour, please? Thank you. The recommendation is agreed. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. In respect of agenda item 8, I shall now pass over to Sam Anthony, Head of Human Resource, and Aaron Locks to present the Health and Safety Annual Reports 2024-2025. They will also be able to provide responses to any specific questions that the committee might have. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. So the Employment Committee will be familiar with this report because we present this to you each year with the update on the Health and Safety Annual Performance. I don't intend to take you through line by line of the report, if that's okay, Chair.
That's fine.
But just kind of the highlights. So you'll see on page 41 of your pack the progress against health and safety actions for the last year. So the rollout of e-learning, accident rates, health and safety corporate training being delivered, ongoing audits and inspections, and we've also delivered a quarterly focus on specific health and safety topics throughout the year to raise awareness and understanding amongst the workforce. It goes on to talk about key activities. So the main one is really the relaunch of a new e-learning health and safety courses. So as a result of the new HR and payroll system, we have a new e-learning platform. And as you will see from the list on page 41 and 42, there are a significant amount of health and safety e-learning courses now available to staff, which has increased the training resources for our workforce quite considerably. Some of those are mandatory for certain job roles. For example, manual handling will be mandatory for our refuse and cleansing, as it's the same with PPE protective equipment. So on page 43, it talks about the codes of practice that have been reviewed and updated this year. And then it goes on to talk about the training that's been delivered in the last year. So conflict management, managing challenging phone calls, and emergency first aid at work. 113 people have received training in the last year. That doesn't include the e-learning modules. There's a significantly higher group of people that have undergone those. It's also worth pointing out that training is supported by on-the-job training within all service areas. You'll know that the base do toolbox talks within the cabs to make sure that the staff are briefed, and there's a specific induction health and safety checklist that all managers and new members of staff have to undergo that's relevant to their role. There's some information about fire safety. Obviously, we have obligations under the legislation for fire and safety, and all our occupied buildings undergo a 6-monthly no-notice fire evacuation drill to test our responses. We also test the fire drill on a regular basis. Going on to look at first aid, we provide 2 levels of first aid staff, trained staff, which is the full first aider and emergency first aid at work. And at the top of page 45, you've got the numbers of those individuals that are trained within the organisation. We also have a number of mental health first aiders that can provide first aid for those people in mental health crisis. And there's just over 50 members of staff that are trained by Mental Health First Aid England. We have a health and safety panel that meets on a quarterly basis, and that's representatives from all services that attend that to make sure that we capture all health and safety issues and address those. There's also the occupational health provision that we have. They undertake a proactive health surveillance programme with us, which is run every 2 years. So the numbers are quite low, you'll see from the table at the bottom of page 45. That's because we're just finishing off the 2-year one and we'll start again from this year. Perhaps more of interest for the panel is page 46, where you'll see the accident totals and by type, and you'll also see East Cams we use there as a benchmark as a similar sized organisation. I had requested the information from Huntingdon as well, but I haven't yet received that. So you'll see that the accident rate has gone down since last year, which is pleasing to see, down to 17, and only 1 reportable accident. So that's decreased by 9, and the incident rate has gone down to 5.96 from 7.71, which again is really pleasing. And you'll see compared to East Cams, we are more favourable than those at present. So moving on to page 47, it just breaks down the accidents by service level, and you will obviously see that communities, environment, leisure and planning have the highest amount because they're the high risk areas, particularly refuse and cleansing. And then it breaks them down by type, and as I said, there was 1 reportable accident which is shown on the bottom of page 47. Just moving over to page 48, we report the days lost as a result of accidents or incidents at work. Now you'll see that this is an increase since last year. Whilst we have decreased our reportable accidents, I'd just like to give some focus to this. This is actually attributable to 2 members of staff. One was the reportable accident where an individual ruptured their Achilles heel whilst at work. So as you can appreciate, that's a significant injury and results in quite a significant period of absence. The other one is a result of an RTC from a member of staff, quite a significant RTC, where the individual actually ended up with some severe life-changing injuries. So that whilst the days lost for the incident are very high, we can explain it and it's attributable to just 2 individuals. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee are aware of that. Accidents involving members of the public is just the 1 this year. And conclusions from the accident data, we do focus on those to see if there's any trends or any themes. We haven't been able to find any. However, I will just pass to Aaron because he's going to talk about perhaps the investigation process going forward. And then it just talks about what our actions for the coming year are. So it's more of the same, but it's specifically conducting a review of our lone worker devices, updating our driving at work regulations and associated policies, and developing some more people-centred leading indicators going forward. And then finally, for members, there's the action plan, which you'll see is all completed. And I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Aaron, before we open for questions?
Do you want me to talk about the incident investigation?
Sorry?
Do you want me to talk around the incident investigation plan, so what we've got going on with the
Please
organisation?
do, yes.
So, as Sam said, our incident numbers are very, very low in Fenland, but one thing we have identified is across the organisation, depending on where the incident happens, there could be an inconsistency about how that sort of incident is investigated. So what we want to look at doing is completely reviewing our incident investigation process, supporting our managers more efficiently by providing a clear structure, but also looking at potentially bringing an external training provider to make sure that our managers are equipped with all the tools to actually effectively investigate an incident concisely and accurately. And one thing we want to look at doing as well is potentially peer support. So if we have an incident within, say, refuse, we bring a manager from a different service area to give another pair of eyes onto the investigation to hopefully give an objective outcome of that investigation. So they're the kind of things that we'll be looking at throughout this financial year.
And essentially, our health and safety performance is very good. We're just looking for opportunities to improve it even more. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. This is open for debate. Have we had a proposer for the report? Linda? No. So could we have a proposer for the report, please? Councillor Davies. Could we have a seconder, please? Councillor Mafton. Thank you for that. This item is now open for debate. If you have any questions, please. Councillor Davies.
Yes, Sam, you spoke about e-learning. So how do you measure the effectiveness beyond just that you know the completion rate?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We're currently, we've rolled it out, I think it started in April. So we're, first of all, tracking completion, and then the accident investigations will make sure that those individuals have completed their necessary mandatory training, what they learnt from it, and then recommendations going forward. So we're kind of tracking their performance versus that.
Yeah, one thing we will be looking at doing is when we look at an incident happening within a service area, we will review the training as part of that and see if there's a link with a number of incidents based on lack of training within that.
Thank you. Councillor, yeah, please do
Thank you.
continue.
So, going on from there, then, what governance controls are in place to ensure the audit and training programmes not only completed, as you said, but you just spoke about like one area. Is that across the board that you're tracking in exactly the same way?
Yes, exactly that, councillor. So under the new system, we can actually track who's completed it, by when, and we actually feed that into the Audit and Risk Management Committee. They've now asked for that. So we'll be feeding that in on a probably a quarterly or 6 monthly basis.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Mafdon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just mine is a very, very simple question. Under the number of first aid training trained staff, you have 6 at Finland Hall. And then at the very bottom you have business centres. There's 2 at each. I'm assuming South Fens and the boathouse. Yeah, and then so what happens? That's 1 per centre. 1 at South Fens and 1 at boathouse, isn't it? So what happens if, say, 1 first aider is on leave? Does that leave the site without a first aider?
Good question. There's always an emergency, the emergency first aid person available. Because they are business centres, we don't actually legally have to provide a full first aider, but we have upskilled them as well. So even though that first aider may be on leave, we have somebody who has emergency first aid.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Davis.
Going back to accident reporting, this year there's only 1 near miss reported. So, how can we get people to take near misses almost the same as an actual incident? Because we should learn from near misses as well.
I can agree with you more, and that's one thing we will be pushing as part of the incident investigation process about the culture about reporting, because we learn more from our near misses. Yeah. And obviously the near misses will help prevent, incidents taking place. So we do know there's a bit of a push to do better in that area. The numbers are too low. I would expect to see a higher amount. So we will be doing a lot of engagement work around our different services, especially around our high risk areas, to make sure they feel safe to report through to us.
Yeah, because that obviously that clearly gives you an insight into what's really going on, and also is the training working, because a near miss is almost as bad as an actual incident, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. Near miss numbers would sort of give us an idea of our maturity in relation to occupational safety and health. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? No? Right. Since there are no other questions on this report, there are no further speakers. Therefore, the recommendation asks that the Employment Committee note the Council's performance for 2024-2025, which has previously been presented to the Corporate Management Team and the Health and Safety Panel. All in favour, please. Thank you. Agreed unanimously. public interest test has been applied to the information contained within the exempt report, and it is considered that the need to retain the information as exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing it. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this assessment and therefore the proposal to exclude the press and public during the discussion of this item to please raise their objections now? I will start again because the mic wasn't turned on. The agenda item 10 concerns a proposal in respect of the future structure of the Economic Growth Service, which will be presented by Anna Goodall, Corporate Director. Members will note that the report has not been published with the agenda on the basis that it should be exempt from publication and public debate. It is therefore necessary to consider whether to move to exempt session and exclude the press and public from the debate. As regards the basis for the exemption, members will note specific reference to paragraph 2, 3 and 5 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. The public interest test has been applied to the information contained within this exempt report, and it is considered that the need to retain the information as exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing it. Can I now ask any member who does not agree with this assessment and therefore the proposal to exclude the press and public during the discussion of this item to please raise their objection now? I see no hands raised. Thank you. Member Services, can you please end the link to YouTube so we can continue in exempt session?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for IT to end it.
Okay.